I was born in Brooklyn Terrace, which was known as Coast Guards. The old, very old Coast Guards at the top of Brooklyn Terrace. And it was known as Coast Guards because your parents or whoever had to be with the Trinity House. And my grandfather was a pilot for the old boats here. So that's how we were allowed to live in Coast Guards. It was lovely.
And were you here for long?
Of 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
When I was born.
So you don't remember very much of that?
Not at the earliest.
And what happened? Where did you go?
Well, I went back to Brighton where my parents lived. I was schooled in Brighton, very good school. And we lived there until Brighton was having an awful time, wartime. It really made Mother come back to St Maur's because my school was evacuated to Canada.
Ah.
2 important schools in Brighton were evacuated to Canada.
And she didn't want you to go?
Said, no way, Charles, is this happening. So he said, well, I'm reserved occupation, can be anywhere, what do you to do? She said, I'm going back to Mother in St Maur's.
Right, so you came back?
He came back. And lo and behold, the boat I would have been evacuated with the school was torpedoed off Nova Scotia.
So what was St Maur's like then?
St Maur's like, I was shattered when I came back.
Yes.
Because we had been here as children, playing with all my other cousins, swimming, sailing and thoroughly enjoying life. And when we came back, it was absolutely filled with American troops. Every hotel had been taken by Mr. Mosley, and Eisenhower came to see them off at D-Day, when we all rushed up to the castle, the whole village, to wave them bye-bye. And the awful part was they went to Omaha Beach on D-Day, and as we all know, Omaha Beach, so many were killed. A very sad part. But I must say that whilst we were with all these Americans, St Maur's was well known to have nylons and Hershey bars. It was great. Loved every minute of it here. But things changed. Once Eisenhower had said bye-bye, the village changed back to its normal village.
And did you stay in the village or did you go away to school again?
I stayed in, because it was still wartime, stayed into the local village here where it was super. They were all children, mostly evacuated from their parts of England. And Jake Collins was the headmaster. Well, what a hot headmaster. More of us had the cane from him than anyone. And that was that. So it went on very, very well indeed.
Can you tell us, what was St Maur's like immediately after the war? Let's go on a little walk through St Maur's from the castle.
From the castle. As you came down on the right-hand side, there's a very large house called the Haven. And that was the home of the Eeleys. And then you came on down to Tresanton, which was owned by Silene Cox.
That was a gentleman's club, wasn't it, at the time, after the war?
Gentleman's club, yes, and also it was owned by Silene Cox, who owned Falmouth Docks.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We go on further down, the gallery, which is here now, was owned by Edmonds, and it was always called the Top Shop, where you were able to buy paraffin for your oil lamps, and you were also charge your television batteries. It was good. The next big shop was Edmonds, the food shop here in St Maur's. And go on down further, it was Curtis's the Bakers, which has always been here for generations. On to St Maur's Hotel, the same. Next to it, Miller's of the Estate Agents was our local Hancock's Butchers. On further down we'll go. Post Office was another food shop owned by Desmond Cox. And below that you could see many, many photographs of the old shop Desmond Cox, as it was, by the post office. And below it, in the bay, is a very large old ketch called the Ketch Hero. And that was my grandfather's boat. You could see it so often when you look at the old St Maur's photographs. And he used to go all the way to Wales to collect coal in this huge ketch and deliver it to St Maur's, and also up to Pecule, where they was taken off with donkeys and carts. So
Yeah.
Grandpa has quite a history,
I think-
besides being a fisherman, and all his sons became
And
fishermen.
what was his name?
Joseph Green,
Joseph Green.
and he was married to Maria Louise Green, who came from, and her surname before was Roberts, which was attached to a high-top house. So Grandpa had quite a rather lovely woman. She had 8 children though, so that is why I have so many cousins and aunts and uncles who live in St Maur's, but most of them have now decided to move elsewhere. But they always come home for holidays. Children still come home, and some of them still live here, which is great.
Now, as you go down towards the quay,
Yes.
what's the building there you wanted to tell us about? The waiting room, was it?
The waiting room, which used to be the old bank, Lloyd's Bank, but it is now, it was then, a waiting room for passengers to go on the ferries, which went beautifully to St Maur's, St Anthony and Pecule in those days. And the captain was Captain Ben Johns, and what a captain he was. But also another thing, an advantage to St Maur's in that day and age, was on the quay was a gentleman's toilet. Weren't they lucky? Okay.
And I believe the new flats were put in 1959 or
That's right.
thereabouts, new
That's right.
shops.
It was
And
cool.
at the end, then behind where the dentist is now, that building was a block of flats, and there was something there before.
Yes, before were very horrible looking galvanised sheds, which the hotels used to store all their old linen in and beds.
And then you remember the memorial hall being built, probably.
I don't actually remember it being built, I'll be honest. But I know we were so lucky to have it. And also, right opposite was a little shop, the dairy,
Yes.
where Mr. Teague used to come down from his farm and deliver large churns of milk. So that's where you had to get your milk in those days. Okay?
So at the bottom of Hillhead,
The bottom of Hill Head was where the Idle Rocks is now, used to be the bakery, a very old house again. And opposite was again one of the oldest houses in St Maur's, where Phil Salter lives now. Councilman Phil Salter, I should say, perhaps.
and there are a few
And-
very old cottages.
And some very, very old cottages going along what Route to Denham Road, known to us locals as New Road.
The new road, because it only began 1900.
No, it must be, yes, certainly. And along there, some very notable people lived. Hello, St Maur's Art Group. Thank you for allowing me to record my memories of our wonderful group. A 90-year-old and you are honorary member. Gosh, I'm proud.
And when did you first join the art group?
I joined the art group around 1974.
And where did you hold your meetings?
Well, we had very few places, sometimes in our own homes. Lucky sometimes to be able to afford Memorial Hall.
Were there many members?
Very few, which I will be able to tell you about, and how we were able to raise money with our exhibitions.
Where did you hold exhibitions then?
Well, I was very lucky to represent the art group on the council meetings here, and I happened to hear that there was talk about the West Methodist Chapel
Oh,
on
yes.
Chapel Terrace.
Yes.
So I asked Douglas Farrow, our chairman, what do you think, Douglas? Shall I see what I can find out? Yes, please, Joy. So great. We got it.
And you had...
And we went up there, a little small group, and looked at it. My God, the state of it. It had been used by all the Americans, etc., etc. And then we had to wash all the walls and actually paint, distemper them, before we could even say, hey group, come on, let's have our meeting. And certainly we would not have held an exhibition, the condition and filthy it was.
But you did eventually have the meetings there,
we
didn't you?
We had our meetings. At last we had our own little pad, shall we say, and we were able to hold exhibitions, which quite honestly were very good. We did well with such a small group.
And you were there until the new Millennium building.
I heard about there was an opportunity that they were going to build a memorial hall.
A Millennium building.
Millennium room in the car park. Back to Douglas again. What do you think, Douglas? He said, let us, with our little bit we've got, us, Jean Sinclair, Lucy's dear sister who was treasurer, could we put a little bit in? And she said, yes, of course we can.
So the art group contributed to the building of the Millennium Room.
Contributed to the Millennium Room. And I now feel that all us art members own a little bit of it and can feel proud.
And we need to be reminded of that.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And who were the members especially? There was Douglas Forrow, who was the chairman for a long time, wasn't he?
And he was the chairman. Jean Sinclair was the treasurer.
Yes, and her sister.
And her sister Lucy.
And Audrey.
Audrey Wheeler.
Who had been district nurse.
District nurse in the village.
Lovely painter.
My God, yes, what a good painter.
Mm.
Yes, some wonderful work. And there were other people like little Eve Bysooth.
Mm-hmm.
And as I already said, Joan and Jim Tressiter. Margaret Morecambe, again an excellent artist.
I understand that Charles Pears founded the St Maur's Art Society, as it was then called, in 1945.
Yes,
and he was a very distinguished painter, an official war artist.
Yes.
And there are pictures of his with the barrage balloons and fires over Falmouth in the war. But he lived here with his wife, and I think you have a few remembrances of him.
Yes, I have. With his wife Vanda, who sailed in St Maur's, and they couldn't possibly sail in the same boat because they could not agree. So what they did, they both sailed alongside each other. Great fun to watch those two trying to get to the finishing post.
Where did they live?
Freshwater Boatyard. They lived there in one of the studios.
And did Charles Pears, did you ever get to know him?
I used to live opposite in Wimbledon. I lived in St Maur's at that point, Crossways, which is right opposite Freshwater Lane.
Did you ever paint with him?
No, I never painted. I never had the honour. No.
But you knew one of the other artists, Molly Forrester Walker.
Molly Forrester Walker.
Who was a professional portraitist.
Well, she was a portrait pastel artist, really.
Yes.
And her work was well known throughout the country.
Mm.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, she's mentioned as having painted Valerie Hobson.
Oh, yes.
And
well,
amongst
we used to
others.
have in St Maur's staying as Tresanton as we know it now, very famous people, and certainly a lot of theatrical people.
And do you remember any painters or artists associated with Braganza and with Zoscher?
Well, as we all know, Joshua was married to Mr Mosley.
Yes.
They had 2 children, Cretia and a son, George, who unfortunately, I think was killed in Spain at about the age of 21. Yes.
But she had artists staying there, mostly poets, I think.
Mostly because Polish, because Sasha was from the nobility of a Polish family. And there was no doubt that Cretia, who still lives in Braganza, keeps up the same clearly done at times. There's no doubt about it. Okay?
Now, you used to spend quite a lot of time pottering about in boats, I believe,
Yes,
when you were a young woman.
Yes.
And you liked going over to Place because there is a rather special boat. Can you tell us about that boat?
Oh, there is definitely a special boat was there. You artists have all heard about Henry Tuke
Yeah.
and his co-partner, Charles Napier Hemy. But they wanted to paint somewhere else other than Falmouth, the boys of the docks they painted. Let's have a boat, an old ketch we'll get, and we'll paint on that. And they went and asked Mrs. Fry of Place Manor, is there any chance that we could put on your part of the river just below you a barge or a boat that we could paint on? Of course, she said. So they purchased a wonderful boat called the Vandermeer. And they were joined by many well-known artists, certainly old St Maud artists like Charles Pearce and people like that, and John Clifford Wing's great-grandfather. They all joined them, and they also had people coming up from the Newland School.
Now, was that boat floating at the time? Did they
Yes.
go around?
No, it's static. It was there definitely on a mooring because it was quite a large boat and very old. And they painted there for a long, long time, and people loved it. Certainly the people in St Maud's who loved to paint and used to go and join them. And then eventually they said, I think we've had enough of this. So they decided to let Vandermeer go. And she was beached on Sellers Beach, just below Place Manor.
And it's still
In
there.
fact, she's still there. There are old bits, I believe, but very old, because we're going a couple of 100 years, aren't we? Or definitely over 150.
It's like the
So-
wreck of a dinosaur.
Well, I think we could say that. So that's where dear Vandermeer has ended. But to go back to Vandermeer, I have been extremely lucky with knowing John Clifford Wing very well as an artist, which was a member of our group. His grandfather, when they left the boat, they were allowed to take anything they wanted. And lo and behold, his grandfather took Tuke's original easel. Well, if you saw it, and I will be able to tell you about it in a moment, you wind it up. It's a massive thing and it would go up to the ceiling.
A big studio easel.
Which suit me down to ground. And I have painted on it for many, many years. The way I acquired it was, unfortunately John Clifford Wing died. And his son, Robert, who is the local fished man here now, delivering, said, Joy, could you help me sort out Father's studio? Of course I will, I said. And I went up there, and my God, when I looked at it, I said, Robert, this is more than I could even tell you about. I'm getting David Lay in to come and look at it. And he came up from Penzance and we met. And he said, Joy, a lot of this has got to go to auction. So I said, Robert, it's up to you. And which he did. And he, luckily enough, very well repaid for his father and great-grandfather. And after he said, Joy, is there anything you would like? I said, well, there is actually, Robert. I'd love to have Tuke's original easel. So I, in my studio, and have painted on for many years, Tuke's original easel. And I now have thought, my God, it's big. Do I need this great heavy thing? You have to wind it up. So I have mentioned it to Henrietta Box, the curator of Falmouth Art Gallery. She is thrilled to bits about it. Joy, may we? I said, well, yes, when I decide to get rid of it, you will be honoured to have it, to put it into their Tuke's gallery there. where they have so many bits and pieces which Tuke painted with. Well, I feel now the time has come that I have had enough of this wonderful big easel and privileged to paint on it. And so I have mentioned this to our darling Janet. And she said, Joy, we'd love it. I said, well, what I would like to do is donate it to St Maur's Art Gallery, a group I should say, but on my behalf, I donate it to you to donate it to Falmouth Art Gallery. So she is now in charge of disposing this massive great easel, which is in my studio in Exmouth, and they will arrange to take it to the gallery. So once I know what's happening, I'll be able to tell you all.
I believe Charles Pears and his wife were quite a couple, quite different from each other.
Oh, quite a notable couple. Charles was a typical yachtsman with his old St Maur's sailing cap on and loved to look part of the village. His wife was totally different. She was a very elegant woman. You would think possibly she was more theatrical. But she always smoked a little green pipe. And she also had huge, great gold ring earrings. And you couldn't miss who was Mrs. Charles Pears' wife.
And she had quite a way with words.
Oh yes, a very loud lady, but full of character. And I know Charles loved her.
And did she paint at all?
That I can't say, Yvonne. I really can't. I'm sure she must have helped him at certain times. But
they were rather chalk and cheese.
Oh, they were actually, yes. But they made the characters of our people in the village, and I feel it was great to have them. A few more like that as well.
Were there any other characters you particularly remember?
Oh, God. Oh, yes, we can say not a notable man called Sam Thomas, who lived in a cottage right opposite Sam's Bank, which you all know where people sit. He was our local town crier, and he would stand in the middle of the village by the rising sun, ring his bell, and you could hear his voice all around the village. Tonight in the Memorial Hall will be a dance. It was great. He was the character. So that is why Sam's Bank is Sam's Bank.
And then one of the painters, lovely man called Jim Tresidder.
Yes, and his wife Joan, who
And
lived
his wife.
in the Mount.
And he was a good painter.
Very good. Exhibited in very well-known galleries, I know that for sure, and certainly when we used to take Alverton Manor, and also we used to take Falmouth Art Place, and the other one was Tour County Hall we had, and his paintings were always there.
And he was a great collector of paintings as
yes.
well, wasn't he? Extremely
yes.
keen.
I think he had a very valuable collection, but it was lovely. His life was art, and they were a fantastic couple.
Very generous man.
Oh, very generous. Anything to help this village, and his boys are still here doing the same. I would like to say how proud I am to still be a member of St Maur's Art Group. And over the years, the wonderful chairmen we have had, such as Kitty, Liz, and now darling Janet, who is doing a great job with the help of her husband Eric. How I appreciate how well the group is keeping up the name of St Maur's Art Group.